fired me at 38,000 feet. I was the only person the Japanese chairman would do business with. I read the email somewhere over the Pacific, Flight 889 from O'Hare to Narita, about 4 hours into what should have been an 11-hour flight to save a $180 million contract. My name is Roland Harrison, Dutch to most people who know me. I'm 49 years old, and I've been walking into rooms where nobody wanted me for longer than I care to count. The email subject line loaded first on the airplane Wi-Fi. Organizational restructuring, immediate action required. I knew what that meant. 20 years in Army Special Forces teaches you to read between lines before the lines finish loading. The message was 3 paragraphs of corporate speak. Madison Blackstone had typed it from her office at 6:47 a.m. Eastern, probably with her morning green tea and overnight oats. Words like strategic realignment and operational efficiency and effective immediately. Nowhere did it say the word fired, but that's what it was. Madison didn't copy her father George. She didn't call me first. She sent an email to a man on a plane she'd decided shouldn't be going where he was going. The timestamp showed she'd sent it before most people had their coffee. Before the building security even turned the lights on, I closed the laptop. I picked up my coffee. It was that burnt airline stuff they serve in economy, which is where Madison's new travel budget put guys like me used to fly business class when old George ran things properly. Now his daughter counted pennies and called it progress. I didn't call anyone. Not yet. 7 more hours of Pacific Ocean ahead of me. Nothing to do but sit with it. And I'm good at sitting with things. 2 decades in Special Forces teaches you that. You learn to hold information without reacting. You learn that the first thing you feel is almost never the thing you should act on. What Madison Blackstone didn't know could fill a warehouse. But one particular thing was going to cost her everything. Let me back up. I spent 20 years in the Army, 1984 to 2004, enlisted at 18 straight out of high school in Toledo. My old man worked the Jeep plant until they moved production to Mexico, and the military seemed like a better bet than waiting around for something that wasn't coming back. Turned out I was right. I made Special Forces, spent most of my time in Asia, learned Japanese at the Defense Language Institute, same way they teach you everything in the Army, fast, hard, and with the expectation you'd use it when people were shooting at you. Did tours in Okinawa, Korea, had some missions in Southeast Asia I still can't talk about. Left the service in 2004 as a master sergeant, honorable discharge, full benefits, and a skill set that translated well to the private sector. Did some contract work for a couple years, mostly logistics and security consulting. Boring but steady. Then George Blackstone himself called me on a Tuesday in 2007. Said he had a Japanese partner who needed managing. Someone who understood the Pacific. Someone who could sit across from a 74-year-old chairman in Osaka and not embarrass the company. That partner was Osaka Industries. The chairman was Kenji Yamamoto. The relationship between Blackstone Defense and Yamamoto, now worth hundreds of millions in active contracts, was built by 2 people, George Blackstone, who opened the door, and me, who walked through it and never left. George flew with me on the early trips. He'd sit in first class with a scotch he could finish and stories about building the company from nothing. Started in a garage in Cicero in 1978, he'd tell me. Made his first government contract fixing radio equipment for the Coast Guard. By the time I met him, Blackstone Defense was pulling down $2 billion a year in federal contracts. He'd tell me I was the best hire he ever made. Back then, he meant everything he said. Back then, the company was still his. I need to tell you about what I gave up for this job. My wife Sarah died 4 years ago. Breast cancer. She fought it for 18 months while I was flying back and forth to Asia every quarter. I was in Osaka when she called to tell me the doctors had stopped treatment. I was in a hotel room that cost the company $300 a night, holding a phone to my ear at 3 a.m. local time, listening to my wife tell me she had maybe 6 weeks. I flew home the next day, spent those 6 weeks with her. But the 18 months before that, I was building relationships, I was securing contracts. I was choosing work over the woman who'd married me when I was a broken listed man with nothing but potential. We have 2 sons. Jamie is 23, graduated from the Naval Academy last year, now a Marine lieutenant stationed at Quantico. Austin is 20, junior at Ohio State. Business major like his mother wanted, smart kids. They understood duty, understood sacrifice. Didn't make it easier when their mother died while I was 7,000 miles away closing deals. After Sarah passed, I threw myself into the work. The Yamamoto relationship became everything. Chairman Yamamoto doesn't just meet with companies. He meets with people. That's not a sales pitch, it's contractual fact. 7 years ago, Blackstone and Osaka signed what we call a master partnership agreement. I have the original signed copy in my desk drawer at home, right next to Sarah's prayer book and the boys' Little League trophies. Section 4, paragraph B contains what's called a designated liaison clause. It says all primary communications, contract negotiations, and face-to-face meetings between the companies will be conducted through me, Roland Harrison, Director of International Partnerships. Any change requires 60 days written notice to Osaka Industries and written approval from the chairman's office. Madison never read Section 4. She never read any of it. Let me tell you about Madison. Madison Page Blackstone, age 29. MBA from Wharton, which she mentions in every conversation, joined the company 14 months ago as VP of Strategy, a title George created for his daughter. Before that, she spent 8 months at a consulting firm in New York. 8 months of professional experience before Daddy put her in charge of strategy for a $2 billion defense contractor. She has opinions about everything and experience with nothing. She uses words like digital transformation and agile methodology and customer experience optimization. She says these words like they mean something. Like vocabulary is the same as understanding. She introduced herself to me on her second day. I remember because she mentioned Wharton in her first sentence and asked about my educational background in her third. When I told her Army Special Forces and on-the-job training, something crossed her face. Not contempt exactly. Classification. She was filing me under legacy employee and potential cost savings. The first thing Madison did was hire 3 consultants from her old firm in New York. 20-something kids with expensive suits and PowerPoint templates. They spent 6 weeks interviewing everyone in the company, asking questions like how do we leverage synergies to optimize stakeholder engagement. I sat through 2 of those interviews, felt like being interrogated by people who'd never seen the inside of a factory, let alone a battlefield. Their report recommended right-sizing the workforce and eliminating redundant legacy positions. Translation: fire the old guys who cost too much and know too much. 6 weeks before she fired me, Madison killed all international travel budgets. Every department effective immediately. She sent a company-wide memo about modernizing our approach and leveraging digital communication tools. I filed a written objection through proper channels. It went to Patricia Summers, our general counsel, then to Madison's desk. It was dismissed without discussion. I absorbed it, said nothing publicly, adjusted. That's what you do when you've spent 20 years in special forces. You watch the terrain, you note the hostile positions. You don't assault a hardened target until you know what's behind it. But I knew what the travel freeze meant for the Yamamoto relationship. Chairman Yamamoto was 74 years old. He conducted business face-to-face. He measured commitment by presence. You didn't Zoom with Kenji Yamamoto. You flew to Osaka. You sat across from him. You presented your business card with both hands. You waited for him to speak first. You pronounced his name correctly because he would notice the difference. I knew all of this because I'd spent 17 years learning it. Madison knew none of it and didn't think she needed to. The week before my Tokyo trip, Madison called a meeting, all department heads, including me. She stood at the head of the conference table with her laptop open and a cup of something green that smelled like lawn clippings. We're moving to a fully integrated digital communication strategy, she announced. No more flying people around the world for meetings we can handle virtually. It's 2024. Our clients need to adapt. Howard Flynn, our senior contracts manager, cleared his throat. Howard's been with the company 15 years, came over from Lockheed Martin when George recruited him. Good man, steady. Madison, some of our international partners have specific protocols, cultural expectations. The Yamamoto relationship, for instance, Madison cut him off, is exactly the kind of inefficiency I'm talking about. We're spending $200,000 a year flying Dutch to Japan to have conversations we could handle with email and video calls. She looked directly at me when she said it. Dutch, not Mr. Harrison, not Roland, Dutch, like I was some relic from a war movie. With respect, I said, Chairman Yamamoto has specific requirements about requirements we can modernize. I've already reached out to their U.S. office about transitioning to digital-first communications. She had not reached out. I would have known. Yamamoto's U.S. office consisted of 2 people in a small suite in Century City who handled shipping logistics. They had no authority to make decisions about communication protocols, but I didn't say that, not then. I made a note, filed it away. In special forces, you learn to gather intelligence before you act on it. The morning I boarded that flight to Tokyo, I was going to meet with Yamamoto's deputy, a man named Sato, to prepare for the contract renewal, $180 million. The renewal meeting was scheduled 10 days out. Chairman Yamamoto was flying to Chicago personally for it. He doesn't do that for paperwork. He does that for relationships. I was also going to quietly assess the situation, see how much damage Madison's digital-first approach had already done, see if the relationship could survive her modernization efforts, and then at 38,000 feet that email, I completed the flight, landed at Narita, took the train into Tokyo, same route I'd taken 50 times before, past the industrial districts where my old army buddies would recognize the manufacturing plants, past the business towers where deals got made the same way they'd been made for centuries, face-to-face with respect, with time. I met quietly with Sato at a small restaurant near Yamamoto's office. Sato was polite, formal, the way Japanese businessmen are when they're about to deliver bad news. "Harrison-san," he said, "the chairman has concerns about recent communications from your company." I knew what he meant. Madison's emails, her digital-first approach. "There have been changes in our organization," I said. "I'm here to address any concerns." Sato looked uncomfortable. "The chairman values consistency, reliability. The relationship you have built over many years. I understand." He paused, chose his words carefully. "There are questions about whether Blackstone Defense still honors the traditional approaches." I explained the situation with the only thing I had left, the truth. I told him I'd been terminated. I told him I didn't know what Blackstone would do next. I told him I was sorry. Sato listened. He nodded once. He said he would inform the chairman. I bought my own return ticket on my own credit card, $1,847, didn't expense it. There was no one to expense it to. Landed at O'Hare on a Wednesday evening, took a cab home to my apartment in Arlington Heights. The place smelled like old coffee and silence. I sat at my kitchen table. I opened my laptop. I pulled up the only document that mattered, the original Blackstone-Osaka Master Partnership Agreement, the signed copy George had given me himself 7 years ago. I turned to Section 4, Paragraph B, then I called Tony Ramirez. Tony and I served together in the 7th Special Forces Group. He was a communications sergeant, same rank as me. We did 2 tours together, one in Korea, one I still can't discuss. That was 25 years ago. Now he's a licensed attorney in Virginia, employment law and government contracts. He's the kind of friend you don't talk to for months, then call at 10 p.m. on a Wednesday, and he picks up before the second ring. Dutch, Tony. "I need you to look at something." I read him the termination email. Then I read him Section 4, Paragraph B, the designated liaison clause, the 60-day notice requirement, the mandatory approval from the chairman's office. Tony was quiet for 8 seconds. I counted. She didn't send notice to Yamamoto. No. She didn't get approval from the chairman's office. No, Dutch. This isn't just wrongful termination. This is breach of the partnership agreement itself. Yamamoto has contractual right to void the renewal without penalty. I could file by Friday. I looked at the agreement. At George's signature next to mine from 7 years ago. No. Don't file anything. Not yet. Dutch, what are you doing? I'm letting the mechanism work. 9 days. That's how long it took. I didn't call Blackstone. I didn't call George. I didn't send letters or hire lawyers. I sat in my apartment and I waited. The same way I learned to wait in a communications bunker in Korea when you could hear something forming in the static, but it hadn't resolved yet into something you could act on. I drove to Quantico that weekend. Jamie had Liberty Saturday night. We grabbed dinner at a barbecue place, off base. Real Virginia barbecue, not the chain stuff. He was in civilian clothes, but still had that military bearing, that way of sitting straight and making eye contact when he talked. "You seem different, Dad," he said over pulled pork and coleslaw. "Work situation," I said. "Good different or bad different?" I cut my brisket, chewed slowly. "Ask me next week." He nodded. 23 years old and smart enough to hear what I wasn't saying. He gets that from his mother. "You know, Mom always said you were at your most dangerous when you got real quiet." I looked at him, Sarah's words, but his voice. She was a smart woman. Yeah, she was. We finished dinner, drove around base for a while, windows down, talking about his unit, his plans. normal father-son stuff. The kind of conversation Sarah always wanted me to have more of. Monday, I did nothing. Tuesday, I did nothing. Wednesday, Howard Flynn showed up at my apartment at 7:15 a.m. holding a manila envelope and 2 cups of gas station coffee. Howard is 51 senior contracts manager, 15 years at Blackstone. He has the office 2 doors down from where mine used to be. He's not a flashy man. He wears the same 3 ties in rotation, drives a 10-year-old Honda, and has never once used the word synergy in a sentence. He's the kind of person who holds a building together and never gets thanked for it. He handed me the envelope. Printed these last night after everyone left. Figured you should have them. Inside were 6 internal emails. Madison to Andrew, Madison to Patricia Summers, Madison to George. I read them standing in my doorway in a t-shirt and yesterday's coffee still in the mug on the counter behind me. The first one was dated 2 weeks before my termination. Madison to Andrew Harrison is legacy infrastructure. The Yamamoto relationship needs centralization under strategy, 1 point of contact. Digital first. No more flying someone across the Pacific every quarter for relationship maintenance that should be automated. The second was Madison to Patricia, responding to Patricia's memo about Section 4. Patricia, I've reviewed your concerns about the liaison clause. This is exactly the kind of legacy friction I was brought in to eliminate. We're not going to let outdated contract language dictate our operational efficiency. Move forward with the restructuring. Move forward, 2 words. $180 million. The third email was the one that mattered. Madison to Andrew. The morning of my termination, 6:12 a.m., 35 minutes before she sent me the email at 38,000 feet. Harrison won't push back. He's widowed, paying college tuition, 49 years old. He's not going to find another position like this in the current market. He'll grumble, maybe consult a lawyer, but he'll settle quietly because he needs the income, standard severance package, and we move on. I read that one 3 times, standing in my doorway with the morning air coming through the screen and Howard watching my face. You okay? He said. I'm fine. You don't look fine. I look exactly how I look, Howard. I folded the emails back into the envelope. Thank you for these. He took a sip of his gas station coffee. The renewal meeting with Yamamoto is Thursday, 9 days from when she fired you. I know she's running the meeting herself. Her and Andrew, no cultural briefing. She told the prep team she'd handle introductions personally because she wants to, quote, establish a modernized communication framework. I said nothing. Dutch, Chairman Yamamoto is flying here personally for this meeting. I know. Howard looked at me for a long time. You're not going to do anything, are you? You're just going to let it happen. I picked up my coffee. It was cold. I drank it anyway. Some things you don't need to push, Howard. You just need to not be standing in front of them. He left. I closed the door. I put the envelope in the bottom drawer with the partnership agreement. Then I sat at the kitchen table and did absolutely nothing for 6 days. Thursday came. I know what happened in that conference room because Howard texted me in real time, because Patricia Summers documented it in her report to the board, and because Chairman Yamamoto's formal response was so precise it read like after-action reports I used to write. The meeting was scheduled for 10 a.m. in Blackstone's main conference room. Madison had ordered fresh flowers. Orchids, not the chrysanthemums that Yamamoto's office always provided for meetings in Osaka. She didn't know that mattered. Chairman Yamamoto arrived at 9:48 a.m. He was 74 years old. He wore a dark navy suit. He traveled with his deputy Sato and a translator he didn't technically need but always brought because formality has structure and structure has meaning. Madison met him in the lobby. She was wearing a charcoal blazer and heels that clicked on marble. She extended one hand for a handshake. Yamamoto paused. His translator's eyes moved to Sato. Sato's expression didn't change. Yamamoto shook her hand once. In the conference room, Madison took the head of the table. She opened her laptop. Andrew, her brother and company president, sat to her right. Quiet, the way Andrew always is when Madison has decided how things will go. Madison began at exactly 10 a.m. Chairman Yamamoto, on behalf of Blackstone Defense Systems, I want to welcome you and express how excited we are about this next phase of our partnership. She mispronounced his name. Yamamoto to 3 syllables. She got the emphasis wrong on every one. She didn't correct herself because she didn't know she was wrong. Yamamoto's face didn't move. Sato's pen stopped writing. Madison talked about digital-first communication frameworks and scalable defense solutions and optimized stakeholder engagement. She talked for 4 minutes without pausing. She didn't ask about his flight. She didn't ask about his family. She didn't acknowledge the 17-year relationship or mention my name. At the 6-minute mark, she opened a folder and slid the $180 million renewal contract across the table toward Yamamoto. She slid it across the table. In Japanese business culture, you don't slide documents. You stand. You walk to the person. You present it with both hands, slight bow, text-oriented so they can read it. You wait. This isn't ceremony. It's how you show respect. Madison slid a $180 million contract across polished wood like she was passing the check at Applebee's. Chairman Yamamoto looked at the document. He didn't touch it. He looked at Sato. He said 3 words in Japanese. Quiet words. Sato nodded. Yamamoto stood. He buttoned his jacket. He said 1 sentence in English, the only English he spoke in the entire meeting. "Where is Mr. Harrison?" Madison blinked. "Mr. Harrison is no longer with the company. We've streamlined our thank you." He turned. Sato collected the translator. They walked out. 12 minutes. The meeting had been scheduled for 90. The contract sat on the table where Madison had slid it, untouched. Howard texted me at 10:17 a.m., 3 words. They walked out. The next day, Friday at 3:15 p.m., a courier from the Japanese consulate arrived at Blackstone's front desk. He carried 1 envelope, heavy stock Osaka Industries letterhead. Patricia Summers read it first. She told me later her hands shook on the second reading. The letter stated that Osaka Industries was withdrawing from all contract negotiations with Blackstone Defense Systems. It cited my absence as breach of Section 4, Paragraph B. It cited the failure to provide 60 days' notice. It cited the conduct of the renewal meeting as inconsistent with the standards Chairman Yamamoto required of partners. The final paragraph placed Blackstone on Osaka's formal exclusion list. No future communications, no meetings, effective immediately. To be reviewed in no fewer than 3 years. Patricia called George at 4:30 p.m. He was at his house in Lake Forest. She could hear a Cubs game on TV when he answered. "George, we have a situation." She read him the letter, the breach citation, the exclusion list, the $180 million contract gone, the projected $750 million pipeline dead. George was quiet for a long time. "Where is Dutch? He was terminated 12 days ago by Madison." "I know he was terminated. Where is he right now?" "I don't have his personal number." She deactivated his company phone. Silence. Patricia said she could hear him breathing. The Cubs game had stopped. Call an emergency board meeting. Tomorrow morning, 9 a.m. Every member. The board meeting lasted 2 hours. 7 members present. George at the head of the table. No jacket, just a golf shirt and the weight of 46 years building something that was breaking apart in real time. The motion was introduced at 11:42 a.m. Removal of Madison Blackstone from VP of Strategy, effective immediately. Termination with cause. The vote was 7-0. George abstained. Monday at 8:15 a.m., Madison walked through Blackstone's lobby for the last time. Security met her at the elevator. Same 2 guys who deactivated my badge 12 days earlier. She didn't make a scene. Went pale, then very still, then walked out between them. Her heels clicked on marble the same way they had when she met Chairman Yamamoto. Same sound, different direction. Andrew resigned the following week. No press release. George resumed the chairmanship and began searching for outside leadership. 2 days after the board vote, my phone rang. New York number I didn't recognize. "Mr. Harrison, this is David Kim, Executive Counsel for Osaka Defense Solutions, U.S. Division. I'm calling on behalf of Chairman Yamamoto's office." I set down my coffee. "I'm listening." "The chairman has authorized me to extend a formal offer. VP of Asia Pacific Operations, Osaka Defense Solutions. The role would oversee all of Osaka's defense relationships in North America." I looked at my kitchen table, at the drawer where the partnership agreement sat next to Sarah's prayer book. The chairman also asked me to relay a personal message. He said, "Harrison-san keeps his promises." He asked that I not translate it. He said you would understand. I did understand. "Tell the chairman I'm honored, and tell him I accept." That Saturday, I drove to Jamie's base. He had a weekend pass. We threw a baseball in the parking lot behind the barracks for an hour. Real father-son time. The kind Sarah always wanted us to have more of. "You seem different, Dad," he said. "Less stressed, like you're actually here when you're here." I looked at him. 23 years old, sharper than I was at twice that age. I'm gonna keep coming to your games, son. Yeah, Austin called that night. First time since the funeral. Said he was coming home for Thanksgiving. Said he was proud of how I handled things. Said mom would have been proud too. Maybe she would have been. Maybe that's worth more than any contract. If you've ever been underestimated by someone who confused their credentials with your competence, who thought your experience was just expensive overhead, who believed they could modernize away relationships that took decades to build, you know how this story feels. Sometimes the best revenge isn't what you do, it's what you don't do. It's stepping back and letting people reveal exactly who they are when they think nobody's watching who matters. The truth has a way of surfacing in respect. Real respect isn't something you can digitize, optimize, or streamline away. It's earned one relationship at a time, and when it's gone, you notice the silence.